A warm welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle. And we're joined by a former Magpie old boy. We've had Mick Waite from New Zealand, but Enoch Showunmi is quite a long way away, and we're all a little bit jealous because he's in Miami. Enoch, a warm welcome from across the pond.
How you doing? It's nice and warm over here. So I don't know how the weather is in the UK right now.
It's not as sunny and it's not as warm whenever we actually broadcast this in the next couple of weeks. I can assure you of that. We'll talk about why you're in Miami and what you're doing now. We want to kind of take you back through your footballing career, obviously focus on Notts County. But I think your career is very, very different to many professional footballers. And having read up, I love the story that you come from something like the 11th tier of football to getting your break in pro football. And this was at a time when you had either just completed or were studying for your degree in London as well, correct?
Yeah, I literally just completed my degree. So I just graduated. A guy I know who actually I played with when I was 17 in the 11th tier in English football. He then 4 years down the line decided he wanted to become an agent. And then he remembered me as a player and he was like, come down to these tryouts. We're playing against Luton Town's first team in a pre-season game. And it was a bunch of semi-professional players. So it was like the squad was based of semi-professional players who were actually been paid, had been in youth academies in their younger years. That's something I never even got as well. So I was never at a youth academy when I was younger. Rejected at so many different points during my youth. So even going into inner London and West London tryouts, I didn't even get picked at 14, 15 years old. And then come to this game against Luton Town, and I'm exclusively a midfielder at playing in my youth. I played centre back and midfield. So they bring me in as they asked me to come back on trial, and I thought I played horrible in the game. That was another thing. I thought I played so bad in that game that I was kicking the board thinking my chance is gone. And then they asked me to come back on trial, and I was like, you got the wrong person, 100%. This is mistaken identity right now. And then, so I went back on trial. I remember after about a few weeks, I went to the assistant manager. It was like, I can't afford to keep coming. I was jumping on train from London to Luton, walking from the station to the ground, and then going training. And he was like, it's your opportunity, take it or leave it. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll rustle up some money somehow. And then after about 6 weeks or 2 months, they signed me on a non-contract. They were in administration at the time, so there was a little financial difficulties. So they signed me on a non-contract, and I'm playing in the first team. And then they start paying my expenses, which is about £40 a week to go on a train from London to Luton. Now, the funny thing about the story is, so my dad was an engineer on the railways, so I used to get a cheaper ticket to get. I only had to pay 25% of the price. So it was like £4. It was like £4 to go from London to Luton for me, but usually it'd have been about probably £12 or £16 for any normal person. But because I wanted Luton to pay me more money, I actually dotted an 8 in pencil to change the 4 into an 8. Scrunched up the receipt a little bit, and then I got my little £40 a week instead of £20 a week for my expenses. So I was making a little money. I was making £20 extra for my expenses at that time. I don't think I ever told that story as well. So that's a
great story.
Yeah, and then for that was 8 months. 8 months of that. So I'm playing in the first team, jumping on off the bench, coming off the bench. I made my debut Plymouth away. Got dragged after 40 minutes. Because I was running around, trying to impress. The game was a little bit too quick for me. I was coming in late in my challenges, and they converted me into a striker. So now I'm playing striker for the first time in my life at 21 years old. Just graduated university, never played striker in my life. And put me up top, Plymouth away, dragged after 40 minutes because the referee said he was going to send me off. And at that point, I was like, I don't think this game is for me. I need to let's go. Let me go find a job or whatever, and go forward. And for some reason, they just said, you know what, just keep coming. And I just kept coming. And I was you know what, I'm just going to keep coming till they tell me not to. I ended up, it got to February time. So I'm there from July 2003, and we get into February time in in 2004, and it's like we had a few injuries and then a suspension. I come off the bench and do well in the game. The next game I set up 2 goals, and then all the fans are like, "Oh, Enoch should be starting. Enoch should be starting." Then I managed to score a hat trick in a league game, and then I signed my contract for 2.5 years.
It's interesting. You mentioned your father was an engineer. You were studying for a degree which you passed with flying colours. I read somewhere that you always wanted to be a professional footballer, but given you've been rejected so many times at a senior level, and I have no idea even what 11th tier of football is. I think you mentioned the Middlesex County Senior League. When you're studying your degree, were the family thinking you need the education to go down that route? And were you saying, well, actually, I think I can be a professional footballer? And they're going, well, hang on a minute, you're in the 11th tier here. You know, where did the balance tip?
I think there was no balance. It was like my parents was like, nope, you're doing education. So, and they're like, I was like Nigerian parents, so they're like, nope, you're getting educated. Like, you can do football later. And I was like, well, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. And then obviously when I signed my contract, my dad was like, see, I told you. And I was like, yeah, but that's like 1 in a million. It was like, it doesn't happen for everybody. But yeah, it was like they focused on education. So get your education, that's going to set you up for life. And then I was obviously like, I want to be a pro, or I want to play. But then I guess at some point you got to be like, okay, I'm not really getting my opportunity. I'm not really getting an opportunity. And they're saying I'm not good enough. These guys are saying I'm not good enough, or these guys are not signing me. So you have to be kind of realistic as well. So I end up starting my degree.
I think you said that quite modestly. You started it. You took, was it finance? I mean, was it quite literally a career potentially could have beckoned in finance, in the big world of finance, banking, that sort of thing?
Well, my business admin degree was my undergrad. So I did a business admin degree, and then I actually did my master's in finance while I was at Leeds later on in my story. Yeah. But the business admin degree was something that I just felt like at 18, you're like, okay, how am I going to make money? I was like, let me do a business degree, because businesses make money, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to make money. It wasn't like a big interest at the time. It was just like, okay, I need to make money. How am I going to make money? If I do a business degree, it makes sense. Let me make money. Let me kind of start my own business. But I remember like, it's a funny story. I remember, you go through some of your old stuff from school. I remember like at 11 years old, they were like, you have to write for English. I had to write my autobiography, and I read it like years later, because I found it in a box in a trunk. And they were like, I wrote, I would either be an athlete, a professional football player, a businessman, or work in a bank, or something like that. I wrote something like that. That was something I wanted to do. And then it was like, I was like, I couldn't be a doctor. I think my parents want me to be a doctor, but I can't be a doctor because I don't like blood transfusions and all that kind of stuff. So I wrote that at 11 years old. And then you look back and you're like, oh, wow, I actually achieved that all those years later.
You were obviously imbued with a very strong work ethic, yeah?
Yeah, like my dad never had a day off work, even if he was sick. He always went to work. He always used to tell us, it's like, you either work, you go to school. If you go to school, I will help you. I'll fund your schooling for you to get a better life, all that kind of stuff. But you have to do one or the other. Football was a pipe dream. My dad loved football. He like supported Liverpool as when he first came to the country. Made me support Liverpool, and then he was just like work, school, get your school in, because that's going to change your life. And I guess he was right.
And I think it happened you had a very, very, very good spell at Luton, and you got called up by Nigeria at a relatively young age to play for them, didn't you?
It's actually after my first season as a pro, I got called up to the Nigerian national squad. And another funny story. So when I'm 18 and I'm in university, and it's probably a little bit of banter on my side, rather than just anything like I believed in it or anything like that. But I used to say to my friends at the time, I was like, 3 things. It's like, 1, I'm going to play professional football. 2, I'm going to play for Nigeria. And 3, by the time I'm 28, Barcelona's going to put in a bid for me. And like, and by the time, so when I get called up to the Nigerian squad, I'm on the call to my mates. I'm like, see, I told you. And I was literally after a year of, like, I signed my contract in February, end of February, I signed my contract after I scored my hat trick. And then that summer, I was playing come off the bench twice for Nigeria against Ireland and Jamaica.
Who was in the Nigeria team at that time now?
They had it was Kanu Okocha, Obafemi Martins made his debut same time. There was Olinfunjana who was at Wolves. So they had some top players. Okocha and Kanu didn't play in the game, but so the squad was just huge, full of stars.
So what was it like then? So you are just completed your first year as a full pro at Luton, having a few years earlier been playing football 11th tier university, and you're walking out onto the training ground for your first training session, and you're seeing Kanu or Kocha. You're thinking, better be careful here.
But I didn't know what I was doing there, to be honest. I didn't even bring I didn't think I was even going to play. So I didn't even bring shin pads. I bought a pair of boots, some stuff, and then I went to the hotel. It was in London as well, and I didn't think I was even going to play. So didn't bring shin pads, and then okay, you're on the bench. I'm like, oh shit, I ain't got nothing. I haven't even got the right equipment. And then I'm at the training session. I'm just looking around what am I doing here right now? It was so surreal. So it was for me, it was just wow, that was this is insane right now. This is insane. How can I be involved with the national team of Nigeria? And this is not an under 21 team or U8. This is the full national team.
How quickly did you adapt to becoming a professional footballer? Because, like you say, you missed out on the academy system, age group, professional football. Was it a big learning curve? Yeah,
it was. It was one I had to adapt to just training every day. So my body was literally broken the first beginning of pre-season, and I was always kind of a fit kid, but running, I was just making sure I was kind of in the top 3 in the runs in pre-season. I was pushing myself the hardest I could. I used to go home, I used to sleep, wake up, eat dinner, go back to sleep, wake up, go to training the next day. And that was literally my schedule for about 3 or 4 months, just to get used to training every single day. And then so my friends in London were like, oh yeah, you're at a professional club, you're playing for a professional club. And I'm jumping on public transport. So everyone's asking obviously how much you're getting paid. And I'm I'm on the same bus as you. I ain't getting paid nothing. But just to adapt, and again, adapting to the position as well. I never played as a striker. So it was adapting to that kind of position as well, and just being in that environment and learning off the strikers that were there and the players that were there, and just picking things up as I went along.
During my time in and around pro football, going back many years, and I remember when I was first at Leicester, they had Ian Ormondroyd, very tall, 6'5", and he always used to say, it's much harder when you are this size, not because you're physically bigger, but because everybody notices your every movement on the football pitch. So if you've never seen Leicester City play before, the one player, by and large, you will always remember, if you're watching from the opposition or whatever, you'll remember the 6'5" bloke. There's no hiding place. Everything you do, you're kind of under a microscope. And I'm guessing it was the same for you.
Yeah, it was obviously, so another funny story. So I grew up literally, obviously trying to play. So the game's called football, right? Not headball. So I used to be playing on the five-a-side scene in London. So I used to always practice at my feet. Everything I used to do to just get better as a player was practicing with my feet. Dribbles, balls, tricks, all that kind of stuff. And I played a lot in the five-a-side scene. So again, it's sharp, on the ball, all that kind of stuff. So I come into the pro game and they're you're coming back for corners. You need to head the ball. You need to be a target man and flick the ball. And I didn't have a clue how to do any of that. So it literally, I had to, like I said, learning on the job. It was and then you have all these big, 6 foot plus centre backs who love to head the ball, and they're just coming through the back of me bang every single time. And I'm another one. Let me go up ahead. And then again, like you say, all the fans expect me to win these balls because I'm 6'5", right? So all the fans are there saying, what's this 6'5" guy here? He's useless. It's he can't even win a header. So I had to learn that as I went along as well. And it's just getting used to that part of the game as well. And obviously I grew up obviously watching the Premier League, watching Serie A at the time. And it was obviously football as a certain way. And then you come into League One and it's just a fight, and then it's a battle, and it's it's not always pretty football, and the pitches are muddy, and it's not just flat grass. And then you're okay, now this is real football. This is a job now. This is work. Now I'm in a position where it's like I'm understanding what the real industry is about and like people playing for their livelihoods and stuff like that.
Before you arrived at Notts, you played for some big clubs. You know, Bristol City. You had a loan spell at Sheffield Wednesday. You were at Leeds. So, you know, you are now playing in front of 20,000 plus crowds. And was that difficult or not? Or was that water off a duck's back to you?
I think moving to Bristol was the big change for me, because like I left home, I left London, I went to another city where it wasn't just around the corner from London. And it's just like kind of helped me grow up as a person and a man. And then I got into that Bristol team that first season. And if I was fit, I was generally a starter. I was playing in that team. And Luton, it was hit and miss. I was like, I would play a few games, get dropped, be on the bench, and then obviously the manager had his favorite. We had a great team. Like a lot of the players went on. Like Steve Howard was the striker there. We had Warren Freeney at some point, Rowan Vine. We had like Gary McSheffrey coming on loan as the strikers. Then we had like Curtis Davis, who's at Derby now, great centre back. Leon Barnett played Prem. So we had like Kevin Nick. Like we had a good team. So I was in and out of the team over the 3 years that I was there. When I went to Bristol, I was starting every game, and then it was another thing that my body had to get used to. It was starting every single week, and then Saturday, Tuesday. But that season we got promoted, and so but playing in front of 17, 18, I think 1,000 fans every week is like, I think I scored on my debut coming off the bench for Bristol, and then I never looked back, and I enjoyed it. Because it was like, okay, I'm one of the main players here.
Very good. So we won't dwell on every single club, just because obviously a lot of people like to listen to a little bit about Notts County now. So you're at Tranmere, and you're doing well there. I think you were top scorer, weren't you? I'm sure you would be aware, because I remember Martin Allen saying to me, he tried to sign you the year before you actually came, didn't they? I don't know if you knew this.
Yeah.
Trying to sign I think they had some bids of cash put down, but Tranmere wouldn't sell. And ultimately, after fast forward another 12 months, Martin's moved on from Notts, Keith Curle's come in, and in the end, I think Notts didn't need to pay a transfer fee for you, correct?
Yeah, I was a free agent, so I came on a free, and then I remember Martin Allen being interested. He was interested at different points in my career as well, at different times. I've heard some great stories about Martin Allen. It's unfortunate I couldn't actually work with him, but I've heard some unbelievable stories. But yeah, that never happened. Tranmere rejected the bid, and then fast forward the year, the same link came. So I come down to Notts, and I was fully ready for a good season. And coming off the back of obviously my first season at Tranmere, I was top goal scorer, player of the season, and just coming into a point in my career where I was a senior player. I was like captain, PFA delegate at Tranmere Rovers, all that kind of stuff. So I was just ready just to kick on as well at Notts.
So Keith Curle brought you in, and there was a little bit, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but we've had Lee Hughes on, and then you know what I'm going to say, don't you, about the 9 and the 19.
Yeah.
You were given the 9. Did that make things difficult for you or not, or was it just a number as far as you were concerned? Because kind of the Notts faithful made something out of it, given that Lee was given the 19. Yeah,
I think but I didn't know there was obviously that kind of politics that was happening in the club at the time. So I came in and I didn't know what was happening. So they just gave me the number 9 shirt, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll take the number 9. I didn't know what was going on with Lee Hughes' situation. And Lee Hughes and me got on well at the club when he was there and I was there at the same time. And but I know that it was probably because of me taking the 9, that first year at Notts, it was like I think the fans were obviously expecting more from obviously from because of coming of what Lee Hughes had done for the club as well. So I wasn't involved in terms of knowing what the politics was, but obviously I came in like in that environment, and obviously I feel like the fans was like, okay, we want more from our number 9. Then obviously I had a few injuries in that first season, and then the manager wasn't playing me, so it was that element where I think the fans were expecting more just of Lee Hughes's what he had done at the club prior to me coming in.
Yeah, it's a classic case, really, isn't it? Of no one really gained out of it, and it's one of those things where perhaps if it had been handled a little bit differently, it would have made it much easier for quite a lot of people, because fans form expectations without seeing the full picture or whatever. So you've got Keith there in charge. Keith played a very patient possession passing game, and I think while you were there, the club went on its longest ever unbeaten run away from home. It's a full calendar year, 12 months without losing an away game, which is unbelievable, really. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, at any level.
Yeah, fantastic. But it was kind of at home. We weren't knocking teams over. There were a lot of draws in those sequences. What can you remember walking in and seeing Keith's style of play, and what did you make of it all?
I think away from home there was probably a bit of less pressure on the boys. I think maybe like some of the fans wanted more of like to get forward a little bit quicker, to not be as patient with the ball. So I think there's that kind of like the fans as well putting that little bit of pressure on the boys in terms of like we're playing a certain way, but the fans don't see probably the bigger picture in what we're trying to do in terms of the slow build up play. And so they want more action, they want more entertainment, they want more goals in the back of the net. We're not producing that at home, and then it becomes that kind of cycle of the fans are not as confident in what we're trying to do and the kind of the way we're trying to play, and then it just spirals, and then you go one game, you don't win at home, and then you go a second game, and then you go a third game, and then it starts playing on people's minds, it starts playing on the manager's mind, it starts playing on the fans' mind, it starts playing on the players' mind. And away from home, I think that there's that lack of pressure, whereas the fans are not on your back as much, because again we're playing away from home, so we can play our game. The opposition fans, they're like, okay, this is a good team, and then we're going and we're winning games, and we stay unbeaten for that long. So I think that could be an element of what was happening at the time.
So as the centre forward, the forward fulcrum of it all, we play a very possession pace game. What was that like for you as a player to play in that kind of system?
I didn't mind, because like I said before, like early in my career, it was like if you look at my time at Luton, my time at Bristol, a lot of my games I didn't play as a forward. Like I said, I came off playing midfield, so managers would use me right mid, left mid. I played about 12 games in the Championship as a centre midfielder, and then so I was kind of used to like having touches of the ball. At a certain point in my career, I got kind of like stigmatized as he's a target man, get it to his head, flick-ons, all that kind of stuff. And Tranmere, I was kind of used like that exclusively.
Yes.
So
yes.
I can mix it up. So I didn't mind. There was a point even like I think even for my game is like I got to a point where my attributes was kind of pace and power, right? So I think there was a point in my game even where I felt sometimes we could get it forward a little bit more quicker, because it's playing more to my strengths. Let me get running at centre backs. Let me use my pace to get past over like behind the centre backs and stuff like that. So so I think there's still parts of the thing that wasn't playing to my strengths particularly, but I was comfortable playing in that kind of possession football.
You mentioned possession football. I'm sure you had quite a few battles with centre halves as well, didn't you? I mean, were there any sort of really difficult opponents, or what was it like?
Yeah, so like I know like at my time, probably post Leeds, I know it's like it's kind of like, okay, he's a target man. So Tranmere time and coming into Notts, I know this kind of League One level, and the centre backs, they were like it was always a fight. It was always like trying to just pushing me in the back, like getting elbows in. I'm getting my elbows up, they're getting their elbows up. So it was a lot of just like winning those kind of battles in games, and then playing. But under Keith Curle, once you're playing, when you're playing that kind of football, it becomes a little different. So some of the defenders don't know what to do in terms of like the ball's not coming long, they're not coming to win headers and like come over the top of me. And then it's like then it's just about movement. It's like moving around these defenders. And most of them in League One didn't like that. They like that game where the ball's coming in long, there's a target man, and they just want to fight them for the whole game, and they're comfortable in that. I think part of what Keith was trying to bring to the team was like disrupting the opposition and their big centre half.
What were the characters like in the Notts dressing room when you arrived? You'd have had some of the, what I would have called the older school leaders. You would have had Lee, you would have had Neil Bishop, you'd have had Dean Leacock, for instance, at centre half. What was the mix like in the dressing room?
There was a lot of egos in that Notts dressing room.
Was there?
There's a lot of good, there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of players that played at good levels. We got on as a group. Bish, we had like Hughesy, we had the other Hughesy, Jeff Hughes as well.
Jeff Hughes, yeah.
Alan Judge at the time, Jamal Campbell Rice, and Damien Stewart as a centre back as well at one point. So we had players that played good level, played good levels, and some players obviously that went on to play good level. So I think everyone was passionate. We had pretty much probably an older team. We had a few young boys coming through, but we probably had like a lot of people like seasoned pros, been there, like played high level, played championship football, played in the Prem a couple of times. So these people like there was like those egos in that dressing room, and everyone wanted to do well. Everyone wanted to do well for themselves. But I think at some point it's like when things weren't going well, it didn't help as much.
Was it a surprise to the players when Keith was moved on? Because although you'd drawn a lot, it was, I don't know, 9th or 10th, a few points off the playoffs. You know, there were no panic buttons being pressed. You wouldn't have thought on the surface.
I think a lot of those players that played that first season was Keith Curle's players. He brought them in as well as myself. Obviously, I didn't play as much that first year, but like there was a lot of players was like they was upset because a lot of players that he brought in was playing a certain type of football, and he brought them in to play a certain type of football. And I think that became an issue when he left. So it was like I know Chris Kiwomya came in after that, and then Shaun Derry, and then the kind of let the football kind of change. So those players were still under that Keith Curle regimen and wanted to play football, wanted to play out from the back. And I know, especially when Shaun Derry came in, the kind of football changed completely. So the amount of player turnover and people coming in and out of the team changed after that.
It was a very, very difficult ask, I think, for Chris, wasn't it, to come in to that dressing room, and you're kind of alluding to it there, strong characters. You are making a step up from youth team coaching, and clearly there would appear to have been a core of players who were still quite loyal to Keith. And so it was, I'm guessing it was a difficult environment at that time.
Yeah, I think so. I think even like, even if you just talk about my kind of dealings with Chris, when Chris first came in, he made me train with the development squad. So I wasn't even training in the first team when he first came in. So there was that kind of infighting within the squad, and that, like I said, I was like senior pro, and I'm like training with development squad, and I'm like, don't understand this, especially when I wasn't playing under Keith and he was development squad man. I used to come in on my days off to actually train just to keep ticking over, and he used to use me as an example to the younger pros to say, why aren't you coming in on your days off? And then as soon as he got the job, he kind of put me to the side, and I was like, this doesn't make no sense, but it is what it is. So I just kind of did my thing, played. So there was that kind of infighting within the squad a little bit as well when Chris came in, and I know he came with Keith to Notts. So I think that was a big issue as well. Obviously him taking the manager's job. So I think there was too much infighting at the time when Chris Kiwomya took the job.
Yeah, and I think also there is a lot of talk about the owners wanting to pursue a certain way, then the owners deciding they want to do something a little bit differently. And whenever you get so many constant changes so quickly, and clearly, it wasn't a shortage of players that was a challenge for us either, was it? We had a large group of players, didn't we? We had a large group of players. And you and I would both know, realistically, it's difficult to ever keep more than 11 happy, i.e. the 11 the manager picks and starts in the 11, isn't it? So when you've got 30 plus, it's a difficult ask. It's a difficult ask, particularly for someone who's moving up from youth team manager.
Yeah, and you're looking at, he wasn't dealing with young pros as well. He was dealing with like a lot of senior pros that's kind of been there, done that. So like I believe that a lot of it was a little bit of his inexperience of dealing with those type of personalities, and a little bit, I think some of the older pros could have done a little better in terms of like helping the cause. But when you're mid-table, or towards the bottom of the table, this happens in professional football. It's like people want to point fingers, there's blame and all that kind of stuff. And then again, you're coming into people. Some of the players are coming into their last year in their contracts, and now they're playing for their livelihoods. So if you're not playing in the team as well, and then you obviously want to press to earn a new contract or earn a new contract somewhere else. So all those different emotions are happening at the same time, and it's like, and then you're trying to steer a football club into the right direction. It's difficult. So I think that's where probably Chris needed a little bit of help from a senior head around him.
And I'm not sure whether you actually watched the episode just a week or so ago with Francois Zoko, one of your colleagues, and as he tells that story about the shirt and being told to go out and get a shirt because the club has sold out of them on a match day, kind of just defies belief.
No, it's insane.
We laugh now, but at the time, I mean, crikey.
No, that's the thing. You think about a lot of the things you speak about just in football in general. Now, obviously, after a while, you laugh about. When you're in that moment, it's like it's just crazy. It's like you just think in that moment. It's like football is like an emotional roller coaster. You're up and down, and then it's like men having to be macho but deal with their emotions as well and what's happening in that moment. And it's like it's insane, some of the things, some of the stories that come out, and that the Zoko one is just it defies belief at a professional level.
Yeah, he's a lovely lad as well. I really enjoyed the chat. He was a lovely guy, and I think he was another one that ultimately went on to do better at the clubs he moved on to than he was able to at Notts. Certainly in terms of scoring decent numbers of goals, double figures. Yeah,
he was a good player. Like I think again, there's like there was egos and that in the club, and I felt like just like Zoko being Zoko, he wasn't like he maybe wasn't part of the in crowd, as you can say, and like he was as a player, he was he's trying to score his goals. He was like a little selfish, as every striker is a little bit, and then some people don't like it and all that kind of stuff. So it's all those things that happen within clubs, but he was a good player. He was a good pro. He was a strong boy, and I enjoyed playing with Zoke. So it was good.
So the top scorer of that season would have been Johan, wouldn't it? Johan Arquin?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Johan was a great player. Didn't speak much English. He was he was like kind of Keith Curle's favorite, as one of the forward players, because he played regularly. I think he probably could have got more out of his talent than he probably did. Johan, but he came in and he did well. He scored some great goals. He was an exciting player.
Just going right back to the start, when you first joined, did you play in the Galatasaray friendly?
Yeah, that was the second season.
Is that the second season? Right.
That was the second season.
Okay, yeah, so we played Galatasaray, didn't we? And Drogba and all the guys are there.
Schneider.
Yeah.
I think as a striker, I got to claim the goal in it, but it probably went down as an own goal because it was like kind of my cross that they turned in the goal. But I'm claiming it.
It's funny to see. I'm sorry. I'm sure it was a worldie, but I can't quite remember it. And my son, just off camera, who produces all this, goes, "Oh yeah, ask him about the Galatasaray game. He put a cross or a shot in and he scored." Yeah. So, but my son's giving it you anyway. So
that game was insane because you just saw the Galatasaray. I think there must have been 700 Galatasaray fans, and they had their it was friendly against a League One club in England. They got their flares out and everything. I was like, these fans are insane.
Yeah. It was because apparently they went for their part of their pre-season, they went to St George's Park and they were doing like a week, 10-day training camp. And then just out of the blue, they wanted a couple of friendlies. And so they kind of had their match agent or whatever they had ringing around local clubs. And clearly they were looking at the ones closest to Birmingham. So, Galatasaray would play you, okay, well, what sort of team? Full team. Drogba, Schneider. And I do remember, Schneider hit one from about 35 yards.
Scored the winner, yeah.
Sweetest strikes I've ever seen. It's like an enter-step, wasn't it? The way he struck that ball.
No, it was like, it was great to play against them. I remember they had like Emmanuel Bowie at the back as well, and it was just like he was just funny on the field. He was just like talking in my ear and stuff. He goes like, "Why are you so big?" Like all that kind of stuff on the field. And then and then obviously like just seeing like the Drogbas and Snyders like in like playing, it's like those are top pros and top players.
Now you couldn't have got off to a better start that season, I think, if I'm right. Sheffield United. It was a Friday night. I think it was like the 125th anniversary of the Football League, wasn't it? So they paired the founder members of the league together. So we were the first game on Sky Friday night. You were on the bench. You came off. Within 3 minutes, you've scored against the future Manchester United and England captain Harry Maguire. Remember that?
I do. Like that goal is being shown all over the US. I like, do you recognize that guy? Yeah, that's Harry Maguire. Plays for England and Man United. But yeah, like I remember Gary Liddell getting sent off after 13 minutes and then being 1-0 down and coming off. And even that, my time at Notts is the whole story is crazy. It's like even at the beginning of that season, the club wanted to get rid of me. They were like, Chris Kiwomya said I'm not part of the plans anymore. So I'm looking at different options with my agent and seeing what we can do. And then I'm obviously on the bench for the first game of the season, and I come on and I score. And then everything from that moment, everything changed that from the beginning of that season. And I'm with Chris Kiwomya. And then the next game we play in the cup against Fleetwood, and I score again. And then it's like, okay, you're not for sale anymore. Like, we're not trying to get rid of you no more. And so and then even at that second season, then I had more of a rapport with the fans as well, because the fans started even like just appreciating how I was playing and just kind of my energy in terms of what I was doing for the team and stuff like that. So yeah, it was funny. Just that game kind of just changed everything. That 3 minutes, just coming on and scoring that goal.
Just going back to that, so to that Sheffield United game, Harry Maguire. I remember watching him. It was in the away end, and to me, he looked decent at that level that night. You know,
yeah.
Can you hand on heart say, right, it's going to go to Man U? But you thought to yourself, he looked decent. Was he someone as a player that night you noticed and thought, oh, he's not bad, or you've scored after 3 minutes? No problem.
No, I think there was a lot of talk at the time about him, but he was good in it. You probably wouldn't say, okay, he's gonna captain Man United. Like you wouldn't go that far. Could he have a decent career in the Prem? You think, okay, if he keeps improving, then yeah, he can probably go on a bit. And he was young. I think he was like 21 at the time, maybe even younger. You think, okay, he's a young centre back. He could probably go on, but like you probably never think you will captain Man United. You probably never at that point. You'd never go that far. But yeah, he was decent. You always knew he was going to be good in the air. I think he scored in that game as well. I think he scored a winner for them.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So you always knew he was kind of decent. He was decent in the air and stuff like that. He could play a bit on the floor. But yeah, I'm 6'5", so I can put some of the biggest ones. Like I could hold a few of them off.
Talking of players that go on to play for England, rather surprisingly, we had one. No one had heard of him at the time. We had a future England captain and future Scotland captain, didn't we? As the two lone players that were brought in. So Callum McGregor and Jack Grealish. And I think I read somewhere that you said that Jack was certainly one of, if not the most talented footballer that you played with.
Yeah, I think just he came into our squad. We were like fighting relegation basically. We were like bottom to mid-table, and he's come in and he's 18 years old, and he just like you couldn't take the ball off him in training. Like you literally could, like I think as one of the most talented players, like just naturally talented that I played with. He's probably real like right up there. So you just couldn't get the ball. Even some of the senior pros, they were like, just pass the ball, and like, but he couldn't. And they will kick him. He would get kicked even in training. And you know, I know they talk about him being the most fouled player in the Premier League. But he used to get that in training. He used to just get on with it, and you just 18 years old, and him and Callum did it unbelievable as well. But but he's got that just natural talent. He can just move the ball, go past people so easily. And now he's obviously honed that skill to do it in the right times and the right areas. He I was surprised it took him so long to. I thought he would kind of move from, obviously when Villa was in the Championship. I thought he'd actually move. But obviously they got promoted, and he's doing really well. He can go on.
Yeah, was he one at the time that you thought could have a career at the top level, Premier League?
Yeah, like when you see him play, the way he just glides with the ball and moves past players. Aside from his socks being down his ankles, you feel like he's
smallest shin pads in the world.
He can go on and definitely play at that level. Yeah.
I think in the first probably 4 to 5, 6 months, you'd possibly have said Callum was almost, because he was slightly more mature, wasn't he? A little bit stronger. And from midfield, he had that great way of slotting those balls into bottom corner, left foot from midfield. He sort of glided across the pitch, didn't he, Callum?
Yeah, like in terms of like output in the games, I think probably Callum had a bigger a bigger output than Grealish. I think he scored about 12 or 13 goals that season. And I think all of the finishes were like almost the same. He just come across, cut it with his left foot. But yeah, so you'd think you'd look at Callum and say, okay, yeah, he I think for what he did in the team, he done unbelievable. Scored a lot of goals and that output at the time. But I just think that like the raw talent I saw with Grealish, I just felt like he if he just honed it in the right way, he could definitely go on.
I also read somewhere that you were very impressed with Ronan Murray as well as one of your strike partners while you were at the club. Yeah,
we actually had a good partnership. We played a couple of reserves games together when I wasn't in the team, and then we took it into the first team as well. And it's like that whole little and large thing. And he used to just buzz around me like on the field, and so it was like if there was flick-ons, if there was balls being dropped around me, he would get onto it and slot. And then we just got on, and I think on the field it showed. I think there was a few games under Shaun Derry where we actually did well together, and playing up top together. So. Yeah, he was actually a very good player. He was hardworking. I think what killed him was that sending off. Like when he got sent off against Peterborough, I think we both scored in that game, and then he got sent off and we lost that game 4-3. I think that kind of set him back a little bit because he had momentum at that point.
Chris, sadly, in keeping with for many years at Notts, it's a very, very high churn of football managers. And so Chris departed, and I think, as you've already mentioned, it was then a kind of a complete change both in style and culture with Shaun. So how did you find that personally?
Well, when Shaun came in, I was injured at the time, and I remember he was actually putting me on the bench, and I remember going to him and I was like, listen, I just want to be honest with you, I'm not ready. I'm not fit enough to play. I can play, I can run around, but I'm not going to do any justice for you or the team. And he just wanted me to be around the squad and trying to be positive around the players. Again, we were like in a relegation battle at that time. And when I got fit, I started playing, and then I started scoring goals. And I think that was the point that me and Ronan started kind of playing together quite a bit. And but yeah, he came in and he was like, I remember. He was like really big on obviously on the fitness. Like I said, the style of play was completely different. And then part of it, like I said, is like my game can adapt to both elements. So if you want to play football, we can play. But if you want to go long or you want to go in behind and you want to go in the channels, then it's kind of like I can kind of adapt my game to that as well. So I think when he came in, it was more longer balls. It was more hitting the channels, going into those corners, and just fighting for survival basically. And but yeah, it was at a point it was great because I was playing most weeks, and then I think we won a few games, and then something I think we lost the game. I think it was at home. I think first it was the Peterborough game because I think he took me off at half time in that game. And then the next game, I think we lost at home. We were losing at home at half time and he took me off again. And then I didn't really play again after that. And then all of a sudden it was like, it was literally the last couple of months of the season. And it was like, oh, you should go. There's a team coming in on loan for you. You should go. And that's when I ended up going to Torquay for the second to last month of the season because I went from playing to just being on the bench and to being out the squad completely. And it's like, you should go on loan. So I was like, that's when I was kind of done with. I was kind of done with the game at that time. I was just like the whole up and down and the whole like, do you want me to stay? Do you want me to go? All this kind of stuff. And it was just like that's for 2 years. At Knox, I had that for the whole 2 years. It was like, you're here. We're gonna pay you up. No, we want to keep you. No, we want to sell you. No, you should go. You should go on loan. And so I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with football. And I was in a place where again is my transition out of the game was a little different because like I was already planning from 3-4 years before. So for me it wasn't about I was playing the game to enjoy it, and if I wasn't enjoying it then I was comfortable enough to step away.
Okay, I want to come on to that in a moment. I just want to square something away. I should have researched this properly. You mentioned your dad was a big Liverpool fan, and you were kind of like, you will support Liverpool. Were you involved for the League Cup game at Anfield?
I think I was injured for that game.
Right. Did you travel, or were you not part of that scenario that evening?
No, I didn't travel that day.
Okay. So you spoke about playing football because you enjoy it. You clearly are an educated man. You got your education. You mentioned degree before you came in, masters while you were at Leeds. So clearly you'd started to think about that kind of exit route. Because it's interesting in football, people will stereotype people, won't they? So if you look perhaps at, I guess another Leeds centre forward, Patrick Bamford, people focus as much on Patrick because he plays a musical instrument and went to a private school and kind of like pigeonhole him as being different, don't they? Did you have any challenges like that or not? Or were you kind of like very focused on what you wanted to do and what the next step was?
No, I had because I'm pretty level-headed. Like win, lose or draw, it's like I always kind of like look at the bigger picture. So I wouldn't be overly excited or think if we won one game, and I wouldn't be overly down if we lost the game, right? So I used to have like managers saying like, oh, I have no passion for the game. So I had that, and it's like, and a lot of them were saying like, oh, because I can go into the real world and get a job, and I'll be fine because I was educated. So I had that especially in the beginning of my career. But I was like, so I had to tell them, I said, I played the game for 8 months on £40 a week, and you're telling me I have no passion for the game. So it's like that's not something you can level at me. I'm just level-headed. I don't get overly excited if we win, and I don't get overly down if we lose. It's like, what's the bigger picture of what our goals are as a whole? And so yeah, I used to get that leveled at me because I was educated, and because I could do something off the field. That means that I didn't need the game, or I had no passion for the game. So it was leveled at me at some points in my career, not too much towards the end. But then when I was at Leeds, I was diagnosed with a blood clot, and the doctor said I may never play football again. So that's when I started my masters. So I was like, okay, let me think about what I will do outside of the game. And so I think from that point, I think the shift in more players getting educated and thinking about transition of the game was a little different going towards the end of my career than it was at the beginning of my career.
That sounds quite serious, a blood clot on your lung. I mean, was that potentially career or life-threatening?
Probably not life-threatening, unless they said, the doctor said at the time, it was like, it broke off. I had a blood clot in my thigh, and it broke off and it went to my lungs. If it went to my heart or my brain, I would have been finished. But they said I may never play football again, because I'd probably need to be on blood thinners for the rest of my life. So that's when I said, like, okay, let me just start my master's in finance. So I started my master's in finance at the time. I was 7 months, didn't play 7 months. I was on blood thinners, so I didn't play no soccer. Oh, sorry, I'm in America. I say soccer sometimes.
No. We'll come on to that in a minute. Yeah.
And then they said you may never play football again. So at that point, I was like, let me do my masters, and then started my masters. After 7 months on blood thinners, I was able to go back into playing football again.
You mentioned going on loan to Torquay, and there's my producer son here is always on the ball. So a good friend of the show, Kevin Nicholson, would have been down there at that point. Yeah,
yes, it would have been. Yes.
We've got a centre half from Tranmere here at the moment. That high level soccer news may have eluded you in Florida, but we've got Mark Ellis from Tranmere, and of course he would have been in the same Torquay team as when you were down there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you remember of Mark and Nico?
Yeah, I came into the squad, and obviously again it was like there was in a relegation battle, and it's like my mindset coming into that game and coming into Torquay was just like, I was just like, probably like, why am I here? Like when I was just playing, I was actually playing well for Notts at the time, and then all of a sudden I'm going down to League Two and playing for Torquay United. And so I come in, and then it's like so I play a few games for them. Obviously I didn't score in 7 games, and then I remember the squad was cool. Like we had like Hargreaves as the manager, and he was eccentric to say the least. He was a little bit eccentric. But the funny thing is like I was just, when you talk about like professional soccer, talk about Zokes without having a shirt for a game. At Torquay, they spent about £2 million on new training facilities, but they didn't put no drainage in. So we couldn't train on the nice part. We had to train on some horrible part where it was like this, or like uneven and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, what's happening right now? Where's my career going? So like, it was kind of like, again, when you talk about the emotional roller coaster, it's like you can't perform at your best when you're like in that kind of place where I was at the time. So, but yeah, those guys are great. We had there's a few boys I knew like that was down there. Like Josh Labadie he played at Notts as well. He was down there when I was there. Christian Pearce was down there when I was there as well. Yeah, so there's a few Notts links as well.
So you speak about the emotional roller coaster. I think was not your last professional football club. So was this then? Did you, as a result, because kind of Notts of that season ended on a massive high, stayed up along the Great Escape and all that. Your darkest Torquay or wherever on loan. So what went through your mind then? Was there then a conscious decision that I need to be moving on now?
Yeah, it was a lot of that. I wouldn't say I decided to not play. It's just I wasn't bothered if I didn't, kind of thing. So after Torquay, I went to Plymouth on loan. So like Torquay was meant to extend the loan on the last day of the window for that last month or whatever, the loan window for the last month of the season. And I'm in a bed and breakfast in Torquay, and I don't hear nothing from them. So I'm like, okay, this ain't happening. I'm just going to go back to Notts and chill for a month and see what I do in the summer. And then Plymouth came in last minute, and then I ended up signing for Plymouth. And like, if Torquay's at the end of the earth, like Plymouth is even further. Like, and so like I'm there, like obviously, like it's 5 hours from my house in Nottingham. It's 5 hours from my family in London. And I'm there, and I'm just like, the manager brings me in, and I don't play a game. And I'm just like, why am I here? Like, so I think he started me 1 game, and then I don't play, and then I go to the manager one time, and it's like, it's so funny. This is how much my head was gone with football at the time. So my birthday is like April 21st, and like we're literally in the last couple of weeks of the season, and I hadn't been playing at Notts. So I go to the manager, I was like, Gaffer, can I have a word after a game on Saturday? He's like, can I come in on Thursday because it's my birthday and I want to celebrate with my family in London? And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. That's how much I was gone. That's how much I was gone with football at the time. And then he actually ended up telling me, oh, you're starting on Saturday. So the whole time I'm training hard. I want to play. He's like, no, you're not. Like, he doesn't play me. And I say, can I have the whole week off basically and like celebrate my birthday with my family? He's like, yeah, sure. That Saturday after I come back, he's like, you're starting. I'm like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense. I was like, this doesn't make sense at all. And it's like, but we had, like, there was 2 games left. So I started that 1 game, and this is another reason why my head was gone with football as well. So in the team talk, he's like, after 60 minutes, you're coming off. I'm like, no matter how the game's going, you're taking me off after 60 minutes. I'm like, my head's gone. Like my head's absolutely gone in, like for like football. And so Plymouth was like my last pro club that I played for. But Notts County was the last one that I had a contract with. Yeah.
So you strike me as the sort of person you mentioned about being level-headed. I'm guessing you were able to make the transition away from being a professional footballer to professional businessman, entrepreneur, whatever, probably more easily than many professional footballers can, because it's all they've known since the age of 12 when they've been playing age group football, apprentices, academy, and all the rest of it. So what was that transition like for you?
It was still difficult. I think I had more of an idea of what I wanted to do when I first came out of football. So I actually started working as a business development manager with a hedge fund in London. So I started doing that when I first stopped. And the funny thing is like my agent at the time is like, you never like all the players I have, if they're out of contract and at home and they don't have a club, they're always calling me every 2 days like, what club do you have for me? And it's like, you've just been quiet for like, you've just been quiet the whole summer. Like, why aren't you calling me, asking me about? I was like, you know what? Like, if it happens, it happens. But if it doesn't, then I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to do this. But the pay, you're never gonna get the dressing room, the banter in the dressing room, the camaraderie that you have within football in any line of work. You're never gonna get that. The hours is you're never gonna get that. The hours is like you're never gonna get that in any job. But I felt like more comfortable just stepping out because I wasn't enjoying it. So I was like, I got to think about the rest of my life, and it's like if I'm not enjoying something, why am I going to keep pursuing it?
I love the way you drop in there. You became a business development manager for a hedge fund. Like 50% of footballers do that, don't they? but you presumably have been working things out and next steps, because you would know and I would know a lot of footballers really struggle with that transition for many years, and some possibly fundamentally find it difficult and never recover from it.
Yeah, I think part of it, I think it's still a struggle because it's like you don't get like the whole, like I said, the camaraderie, the banter, or even like the adulation you get from fans and obviously scoring goals and all that kind of stuff. You're not going to get that. It's like your manager in a business, in an office, is not going to come and start like praising you for just because you scored a goal or you did a win. It doesn't really happen. It doesn't really happen like that. Or give you a big bonus because you scored a goal in it. So it doesn't really happen that way. But I think one of the things that I was able to do was kind of gauge my environment and say, okay, like let me look at things outside of the game. So even when I was at Notts, I got into like trading and stuff like that, just from the finance degree and investment. So even in the dressing room, I'll be looking at my phone and I'll be looking at some of them, and then some of the players would be like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, they're having banter about what people are wearing and all that kind of stuff, and I'm just there on my phone looking at if I've made some money on stocks and forex trading. So that's how I got into working with a hedge fund and doing working with a proprietary trading account with them, and then my whole life turned upside down, and I met my wife now, and I moved to America.
Yeah. So talk to me about Global Pathway.
Global Soccer Pathways.
Global Soccer Pathway. So yeah. So what are you doing with your life now?
So I come over to America, and then I kind of obviously looking to stay in the game and see the development of what was happening in the US and the whole angle how they approach the game. And so it's interesting out here because obviously you may know it's obviously with the US college system, and the college system is their gateway to pro sports. So you go in and you play basketball, you play American football in college, and then you get scouted into the pro teams. And the same happens in soccer. But the problem with the soccer program is that it's only for 3 months. It's only between August and December in university in America. So I saw a kind of gap in the market, and I looked at, I went back with Leeds, and I said to Leeds, listen, can we create this with Leeds Beckett University? And I knew they already had an agreement about a program like this. And then we went, beginning of COVID, we set up a program called the Carnegie International Soccer Academy, which is a partnership between Leeds United FC and Leeds Beckett University, which is a college program, so a university program, so the kids get a degree, but they also get elite level football. So they get to play over 9 months. We're going to organize showcase games against professional academies at U19 and U23 level. But they get the connectivity with the club because they've done the Leeds United uniform and the Leeds United gear and all that kind of stuff. So it becomes like an actual pathway where they can continue playing the game for as long as they can up until they're 21. So I turned pro at 21. So for me, it's like I'm kind of passionate about this because if I had the opportunity at 18 to actually play elite level football and train every day, I would have snapped someone's hands off for that. So it's like creating that kind of program where you can still get a degree, but you can still play elite level. And then after the 3 years, can you maybe go back to the US if they're an international student and earn a contract? Or can they go into Europe and earn a contract at smaller clubs that are more likely to take them on a pro contract?
So effectively, you are looking to place US-based 18-year-olds into a university system in England, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because kind of at the minute, a lot of it's the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And we had James Belshaw, Harry? Yeah, James Belshaw, who was in Notts County's academy. His family, die-hard Notts County fans, got released by Notts, ended up going over to Duke College, big basketball. Mason Plumlee is one of his best mates, and kind of did the collegiate system in America, came back to England, and is then, by playing through with non-league and Harrogate, he's finally kind of achieved his dream of getting back into the Football League. But yours is the other way round, right? Okay.
Yeah. So like for the American kid is like is getting that more time, more contact time playing the game, right? Because if you're looking at for a British kid coming into the US and you say you go to a university and you only play real like in that university team between August and December. And then in the summer, you have to find other teams to play in.
Okay.
Which you can, of course, but it becomes like you don't get enough contact time in terms of training and developing. So for me, it's like, okay, can we bring international kids into the UK? Obviously, the university are buzzing because they get international kids coming into their degree program. Then the club also can get actually extra revenue as a separate source of revenue by connecting this program. Obviously, the kids pay for the program, and in America, everything's pay to play, right? It's the whole football is a pay to play system. So they're used to already in their mind from when they're really young, 15 years old. They already know I may have to pay for college, or I may have to pay to continue playing the game at my club or at a higher level. And at 18, if you're not in college or university, you're not in college or university in America, there's not much for you in terms of football. So this gives again another program. So there's actually this program and a couple more others that I'm actually looking at in Wales and Scotland as well, that I'm actually looking to sign an agreement with in the next few weeks in terms of recruiting international kids to come over and play in these programs.
Very good. I was going to say, are you missing England, the professional football system? But I guess if you're not in England, Miami is about as good as it's going to get, isn't it? And hopefully you'll be able to, as you know, I work with Major League Soccer. You'll be able to watch Phil Neville and David Beckham doing their stuff with Inter Miami, yeah.
Yeah, so it's fun because I got like good connectivity with the club as a whole. So I was actually in City Hall with them last year. Or probably the year before now, trying to get the approval for their stadium. So I was there to support them with the club. So I have good connectivity with Inter Miami. And then I actually live in Naples, Florida, which is about an hour and a half from Miami. So there's a team that actually they kind of made me the face of the club. So it's also kind of on a director level and trying to take them from playing NPSL amateur level to USL League One and going pro. So we have meetings in terms of getting the investment in for them as well. So there's different projects. There's everything to do with soccer now. So we're just creating like different pathways and different things for players and clubs as well in the US.
And do you miss England at all, or is America very much your home now?
It's probably my home, but I'm back every Florida's probably too hot for me in the summertime, so I come for the European summer. So I'm back. I got a lot of family still in London and the UK, so I come back as much as I can.
Enoch, thank you ever so much indeed for your time. It's been great to catch up. On behalf of all Notts County fans, thank you for your 2 years here. Sorry it was quite such an emotional roller coaster. To be honest, that's about 90% of all players and managers that have been at Notts recently. You know, stability is not one of our big things. I've got to tell you, it's not one of our big things. But thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. All the very best with your projects. Sounds like you don't need any luck. Sounds like your entrepreneurial spirit is putting you in a very good position. And hopefully, when you come over, you never know if we can get back in the Football League and play your beloved Luton Town or whoever. We would look forward to seeing you. So, Enoch, thank you very, very much indeed for taking the time to have a chat with us.
Appreciate it. Been a pleasure.